So I'm going to be talking about some recent updates that we've made to the viewers that provide access to items in the Stanford Digital Repository. But before I do that, I want to take a step back and talk about what is in the repository in the first place. That will provide some context for our work. So the Stanford Digital Repository contains both digital collections material from the Stanford Library collections and deposits made by faculty, students, and staff from around campus. The repository does not place any limits on what can be deposited based on file format alone. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a lot of different kinds of stuff. We have books, pamphlets, manuscripts, and other digitized documents. We have photographic collections. We have video. This is a digitized film, and we actually also have high quality pictures of the labels of the container that house the original film. We have audio. In this case, we also have captions and a transcription to go along with it. We have documents in PDF format. Often an item has only a single PDF, but we have items that consist of more than one PDF. We have maps. This is a scan of a paper map. We have a lot of maps. But we also have interactive index maps that can take you to individual maps by linking between the two. We have GIS data, which is data that can be represented geographically. We have 3D items where you actually have this interactive 3D viewer. This is from an archaeology collection. We have archive websites. This link is taking us to Stanford's own version of a Wayback Machine, where you can see a copy of a website as it existed at a particular time. And finally, we also have items that are sets of files that people can download. This is how we provide access to files where we can't show a more specialized viewer. Sometimes the files come in one big group, as you see here, and sometimes they're arranged in a hierarchy with subdirectories, and there can be hundreds or even thousands of files in some cases. And so the short summary is that the SDR has a lot of different types of items from a lot of different types of sources. And the challenge that we face is, how can we make all of these different types of things available to people through a web browser? One of the ways you could approach this would be to have a different viewer for every type of content, maybe even for every type of file. That's the kind of thing that you might see around the web. You might see a service that just streams audio, or just streams video, or just shows PDF documents. But the Stanford Digital Repository doesn't place limits like that, and so we have to have a way to provide access to all of these different types of items using some sort of common viewer, or at least a common framework. And so what we've come up with is an approach where we have this common framework that holds together multiple different kinds of specialized viewers. So we still have specialized software behind the scenes that can process video or audio or 3D or PDF or GIS data and so on. But we also have a user interface that is shared across all the different kinds of materials. And so now I'm going to go through the different components that make up the SDR viewer and talk about what's shared and what is specific to the different viewers. And so in the example that I'm showing here, the main window with the play button and the sea otter, that's the media viewer, and that's using software that's specific to showing video files. But the framework that's around that main window, that's shared across the different SDR types of content. And specifically, I mean the header and the sidebar. Those are what I'm referring to as the frame. And so in the next part of this demo, I'm going to go through the sidebar options and the header options and talk about what's supported on all of the different types of content and what's specific to particular viewers. And I'm going to start with the sidebar. So the first thing to note about the sidebar is that it's actually collapsible and expandable. There's this icon in the upper left corner of the viewer, and if you click on it, it will toggle between the expanded and the collapsed position, so you can see the screen full width or you can see the screen with the sidebar. When an item has multiple files, we will actually load the viewer with the sidebar expanded to make it easier for people to see the list of all the files. And that's the first feature that I want to highlight, which is the contents list. And so if an item has multiple files, there will be this list that allows you to navigate from one file to another. Here's an example of the same sidebar for a PDF item, just to show you a different context than the Sea Otter video that I keep showing over and over again. So the information panel shows descriptive metadata about an item. And you can get to this panel by clicking on the eye icon in the sidebar. This descriptive metadata is drawn from the same metadata that we use to show in item's Perl page. The Perl page is the persistent URL for each item. The idea behind showing it in the viewer is that the viewer can be embedded in different places around the web, and so people won't necessarily be viewing an item on a Stanford Digital Repository page. So we provide some description and a link back to the Perl page so that they can get the fuller description. Similar consideration applies for the rights panel. We show rights information on the Perl pages for items, but because the viewer can be embedded somewhere else, we want to make sure that the rights information is actually in the viewer itself. So there are also some options that are specific to particular viewers that are worth highlighting here. One of these is the interactive transcript that we have in the media viewer. So this is for items that are audio or video and where we have captions. We have this transcript that shows up on the left that will actually scroll as you watch and listen. And you can actually click on words and be taken to the specific point in the recording where those words occurred. Another option to highlight is the text search that we have in the book and the image viewer. So this is searching OCR, and so that means it's only available if we have books or images that have text and we've OCR'd the text. And like with any kind of search like this, you type in your term, click on a result, and it should take you to the page where your term occurred. One thing that I want to note about text searching is that even though we don't have a specific search option in the other viewers, in the media viewer and in the PDF viewer, you can actually search using the browser search. And by browser search, I mean the Control F or the Command F search. Here's an example of running a search like that in a transcript. And here's another example of running a search like that in a PDF. So now I'm going to talk about options in the header bar at the top of the viewer. There are two options that are common to all of the different viewers in the SDR. These are the share and download menu and the full screen option. The share and download menu is really two menus behind this one icon on the upper right. When you click on it, you get a share menu and you get a download menu. The share menu has a link back to the Perl page for the item, and it has this code that you can put into the HTML of any page to embed the viewer on that page anywhere on the web. The download menu is a list of files for download, and there is an option to download multiple files at once in a zip. The full screen option is on every viewer. It wasn't previously available on many of these viewers, so it's been in addition to most of the viewers, and this actually takes the entire viewer into the full screen, including the header and the sidebar, all of those features that I've talked about or will talk about in the header are available in full screen. This is especially helpful for items where there can be long lists of text, like this hierarchical file listing, or if you want more space to read a transcript while viewing a media item. I should note that the full screen for the viewer does not supersede the traditional full screen that you see in media. So here you can see you can full screen the entire video or you can full screen the viewer. There's also options in the header that are specific to particular viewers. One of these to highlight is the search, which is really more like a filter in the file viewer. If you start typing into this box at the top of the viewer, it'll filter to file names that include the text that you typed. Another feature that's a specific part of a viewer is this accessibility menu that you can see in the media viewer. If you click on this, it will tell you the status of whether this media has been transcribed. If there is a transcript, you'll see a message saying that. If there isn't, you'll see a message indicating how to request a transcript from us. One more option that's only available in a specific viewer are these image tools. And so there's this image tool menu that appears just below the header, actually, in the image in the book viewer. If you click on that icon, it'll expand to a fuller menu, and then that will allow you to rotate items. You can flip items to get like a mirror view. You can invert the colors, change the contrast. There are a number of different options there. This menu can actually be hidden completely. We have it on by default when you load an image, but there's an option in the header where you can hide the menu so it doesn't block any part of the viewing screen. So the last set of updates that I want to highlight have to do with authentication. There are items in the repository that are restricted to specific groups or categories of user. In some cases, items are restricted to Stanford users only, meaning that you have to have a Stanford account and you have to sign in to access the items. We have items that are restricted to the reading room. There are a number of different reading rooms on campus that can apply these restrictions, and that means people have to be physically on site to access the materials. We also have items that are not available online, and they may be embargoed. They may be things where you have to contact us, and we might be able to send you a copy, but we can't make the copy available through the web browser. And so in all of those cases, what we've needed is a consistent way to present access restrictions. And so we have this standard set of banners that shows people what restrictions apply for items. So where does that leave us? Well, when we started this recent set of work, we still had viewers that were taking multiple different approaches to the functionality that I've been demonstrating. In some cases, there were features like full screen and Stanford authentication that were available only for certain types of SDR content and not for other types. And one of the challenges that we were facing in trying to implement those features was trying to determine which approach to take or whether we should take all of the approaches at once. So what we've done now is make a substantial amount of progress towards building a common framework for all of the viewers. We're still not quite there yet. We have a fair amount of work to do on the image and book viewer, but what we have been able to do in terms of making these viewers more consistent has made them more maintainable and built a much stronger foundation for future work.